Welcome to the Birds vs. Boys Game Day Reaction Show, Week 13. The Eagles win 35-10 over the Titans in a very satisfying victory and another big day for the Birds vs. Boys podcast. Before we get into it, this is clearly coming down the stretch for both of our teams. You can see the showdown Christmas Eve and into the playoffs, what it is going to mean. So be sure to follow us and subscribe on YouTube here. Follow us on Twitter at Birds vs. Boys Pod, and then on TikTok as well, where we do our power rankings at Birds vs. Boys Pod. Let's get into the game itself. Another Eagles victory, 11-1. And I think we'll start with what we talked about on our show this week, keys to the game. It is very simple when you play a team like the Tennessee Titans. It is stopping Derrick Henry. They like to run the ball, control the clock. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and they want to control the special teams and possession, territory, everything like that. Well, they didn't do any of that. And when it's 53 versus 53, it makes it a lot easier to beat them. Our equivalent to them was like the Wisconsin Badgers. They're the Wisconsin Badgers of the NFL, where they're in the Big Ten. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. They never beat a team like Ohio State because there's just too much elite talent in a program like Ohio State. But usually you see Wisconsin at 9 wins, 10 wins, like a very well put together program. They do everything very efficiently, and they just don't have the talent to match up with the top teams. Well, that's what you saw yesterday with the Titans. They're a well-run team. They have a good defense. They have a good agenda. You know what their scheme is going to be. You know what the plan is for them. They don't hide from it. They just know what to do. And we'll get into it, but what they like to do is win at the line of scrimmage. Well, yesterday, they ran into a team like we talked about with the Badgers playing Ohio State, where they just had more talent. And if you don't make mistakes, you'll win. And I texted my friends during the game. It was first quarter, second quarter. I said, if we just cut out these penalties and focus, we are 20 points better than this team. Well, they ended up winning by 25. The talent gap was enormous. It was enormous between those two teams. And it's just a matter of getting out of your own way when you're a talented team playing the Titans. The biggest thing that we said was stopping Derrick Henry. All right, well, let's get into the defense first. 11 carries, 30 yards. Tremendous performance. And I don't know if it's just me as an Eagles fan. People feel free to comment, because I just have always felt this way. When there is a surefire elite alpha running back, it's felt like over the years we've actually done a great job of kind of corralling them and not letting them go off for, those crazy 200-yard rushing games, or rushing for 150 at 7.3 yards per carry or something like that. I just recently, I guess aside from Zeke, who I feel like always kills us, like we've never really struggled with Saquon Barkley, famous last words, we'll see next week. Even like back in the days of like when Adrian Peterson was in the league and stuff like that, it's just always felt like when we run into like a really good running back who they're going to give him the ball, the Eagles have traditionally done pretty well against those guys. And I thought that was the case again this week, where Derrick Henry had 2.7 yards per carry, and it was exactly what you want, because he couldn't get anything going, and it puts them into third and long situations where then the defensive line tees off. You're trying to get it to playmakers, and they just don't have many. And Treylon Burks, unfortunately, looks like he got a concussion on the touchdown that they did score. So then they were down one more on a team that really doesn't have any to begin with. It is pretty obvious why they don't have one. We'll get to that. The big reason why they don't have enough playmakers. And it was just like you executed perfectly. You executed perfectly on defense yesterday. 6 sacks, 122 passing yards. You just disrupted everything that they like to do as an offense, which is get into 2nd and 4s because Derrick Henry falls forward, grind you down, wear you out. So then it's the third, fourth quarter, and Derrick Henry takes off for that 66-yard, just back-breaking touchdown that you always see when somebody loses to the Titans. And they just never allowed that. And they made Ryan Tannehill have to be better than Jalen Hurts, and he's just not. It was a fantastic performance. It is a team that likes to win at the line of scrimmage, and the Eagles flat out bullied them on both sides, but especially on the defensive line, where they couldn't get their star running back going. And then 6 sacks. There was 1 sack where on the play, all 4 Eagles defensive linemen won their matchup with the offensive line. It was all 4 of them were in the backfield. They just won. And it was like that a lot on Sunday. And you have to be it kind of calms your nerves as an Eagles fan because there's been points where we're like, all right, this like you just can't let this happen where the team has the ball for 8 minutes and they're driving down the field. We saw it a lot last year. We saw it in the loss to Washington, saw it early against the Colts. And it's just like that was really reassuring to see them just like put a stranglehold on a team on defense. And I just think like it's just a level of execution. It was almost as much mental as it was physical. And I just couldn't be happier with how things went for a defense that honestly, even last week against the Packers, was it that good? You know, like they got put into bad situations a lot, like field possession wise, or field position wise, but it just, they were rough. They were rough. And this week they just completely shut them down. And that is exactly what you're looking for. It is pretty clear what the Eagles need to do to be successful. If the defense does not allow these 6 to 7 minute drives and allow them to stay on the field, you'll get the ball back to Jalen Hurts and good things will happen. This is pretty simple at this point. What that guy is able to do now and what is shaping up to be an MVP season, if the defense can just get off the field and get him the ball, chances are high that you are going to be successful and that you are going to win. And I would qualify as getting off the field as having 6 sacks, only allowing 122 passing yards. One of the best running backs in the league is held to 30 yards. They did their job. This is the job. The turnovers, the interceptions, those are great. The job is get off the field on 3rd down, get pressure on the quarterback, and don't allow 2nd and 1st down runs that set up 3rd and manageable. Put them behind the sticks and then get after the quarterback. It is exactly what they did. It is the formula for success, and you couldn't be happier about it. On defense, if you want to look at some of the positives, and I think there are many in all 3 phases of the game, I would like to shout out Nakobe Dean, who finally got to play a little bit. Unfortunately, he was playing because Kazir White got hurt, but he comes in, immediately gets a tackle on his first play on Derrick Henry while being held. First play, first snap, second snap, tackle. The kid just has reaction skills. We talked about it during the draft period where, yeah, he is undersized, and yeah, that is why he fell. But at the same time, it just feels like that guy has the brain of a coach, except he's just born to play linebacker, and the way he reads and reacts to plays in real time, which is something that you can't teach. There are a lot of guys who are fast and can run at the linebacker position, you know, your 4.5, 4.6s, whatever, in a 40-yard dash. This guy's able to read and react to the play and get to the ball quickly. It's like whatever you're worried about size-wise, he makes up for because he knows where he's supposed to be on a football field at all times. He even had a tackle on special teams where he lit somebody up, and he had a tackle for loss later in the game. It's just like great to see. I think the kid has a bright future. It's great, honestly, that he's been able to just learn the game and sit, and you haven't even needed him because TJ Edwards and Kazir White have been great for us this year at linebacking position, a position that's been bad for so long. To now have a kid as a rookie who looks like in his first actual action exactly what he was supposed to be coming out of the draft, and you haven't even had to use this kid yet because the linebackers have been playing so well. That is phenomenal if you're an Eagles fan. And then also Reed Blankenship playing, I think is another guy who reacts really well to plays. Like there was one, he probably should have had an interception. At the end of the half, he had a pass deflection where he was in perfect position, and he's not CJ Gardner-Johnson. We know this, like it's not rocket science that I'd rather have CJ back there, but I think he's done a very commendable job these past 2 weeks, and he will have to continue to do so because CJ is now on IR. We will not have him for the Cowboys game where the worlds are colliding that day, which is rough. So that's, again, like reassuring, like a guy that you haven't even used and as a rookie is now stepping in and able to make plays and looks competent, just like we talked about with Dean. So the young guys being thrust into these positions and succeeding is something that you must love to see if you're an Eagles fan. And then we're going to talk about the offense, but just real quick, special teams. We said we won in all 3 phases yesterday. Britton Covey is alive. Welcome back to the world, Britton Covey, who had multiple punt returns that were successful, long punt returns, 27 yards, flipping the field position. We talked about at the beginning. How do you beat the Titans? Well, you can't let Derrick Henry run. You can't let them play this field possession game. Can't let them have the ball for a long time. Well, you got off the field, got punt returns, and he's returned punts well. Like there's been a lot of criticism of him and of the special teams, as it should be, but the Eagles were the team this time with long returns and setting them up. behind the sticks. There were multiple times where they tackled the kickoff returner before he got to the 25. So even on special teams, they won yesterday. It was just a fantastic job by all three phases of the game. And then on offense, let's discuss 29 for 39, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 130.3. These are MVP numbers. This is real. This isn't Philly bias. Patrick Mahomes is awesome. And if he does win, you're not going to hear a lot of complaints out of me. But this is a legitimate MVP campaign for Jalen Hurts now. There are times where at the beginning of the year, before the season started, we had the conversation, this roster is talented enough that they could win despite Jalen Hurts if he doesn't work out. There are times when you watch the Eagles and they are winning because of Jalen Hurts and he is carrying everybody else who is slacking behind. This kid is awesome. Some of the throws that he was able to make against that defense, just putting it into a bucket, trusting his guys one-on-one. They brought it up in the broadcast, but the first touchdown to DeVonta Smith, it was a read and reaction throw where the safety went with A.J. Brown. He went with the underneath route that left one-on-one in the back. DeVonta Smith had it. He launches it to him, touchdown. That is perfect. He was able to read. He was able to see what the play was setting up. He knew where his one-on-one shot was. He took it, and he hit him right in the number. That's what you wanted to see. That's the step. You were like, they will compete in the NFL if he does this. Yesterday was this. It was the exact thing that you wanted to see from last year to this year. He has made the step. He has made the exact step that you were looking for, where he can react to plays and put the ball on the money. We knew he was a great athlete. We knew he was a great leader. We knew he was mobile and the dual threat would win him some games. We didn't know if his arm could do it. It's here. It's here. Yesterday was my favorite win of the season because of all the defensive things that we talked about and even special teams playing well. They just dominated in all three phases. But in reality, it's because you're watching this guy every week, and every time the ball is in his hands, you think you're going to score. It must be how Warriors fans watching when Steph Curry takes a shot. Like, you just think it's going in. That's how I feel watching Jalen Hurts throw the ball now. I just feel like I'm going to see him ripping it to DeVonta Smith or an open A.J. Brown every time. And even if A.J. Brown's not open, as evidence on that one touchdown. And it's just the best feeling in the world. And here's what I think, if you're an Eagles fan, this is why you feel great today. Last week, they ran for over 300 yards. They just kind of, dominated at the line of scrimmage, opened up huge holes for Miles Sanders. He had 130 yards rushing. Jalen Hurts took off a bunch of times, and you won the game that way. Then you turn around the following week, you throw for 380. A.J. Brown goes off. DeVonta Smith has a huge day. You even finally got the tight ends involved for the first time since Dallas Goedert has gotten hurt. And you even utilize like the checkdowns to Kenny Gainwell. And now you're saying to yourself, we are not one-dimensional. There's not one thing that you can stop. We played the Titans, and we went into that game saying, if you can stop Derrick Henry, you can win. With the Eagles, what is that? Like, what you say, if we can stop blank, we will win. There's so many fill in the blanks to that question now that the Eagles are very, very, very legitimate. And that's why I think, as if you're an Eagles fan, you have to feel so excited after watching that performance yesterday against what's a really good Titans team. And that's the thing. We played the Packers. They had a better secondary, so you ran the ball. Then you played the Titans. Well, they have a better run defense, and their pass defense is suspect, and one of their corners got hurt. So you threw the ball. And the optionality to do all of these things with all of these weapons and not even having Dallas Goedert is legitimate firepower that makes you a Super Bowl contender. I am so happy. It was my favorite win of the season because they dominated in all the phases. And just to shout out the offensive line, the penalties are absurd. Like, that was just insane. You cut them a lot of slack because, for the most part, this is a fantastic unit. It is something to clean up if you had a complaint about yesterday. But they won. They dominated in both the lines, offensive and defensive, dominated in a game where the mantra for the Titans is to bully people and be physical. And they got out-physicaled by the Eagles. On the Miles Sanders touchdown run, Greg Olsen, who I thought did a good job on the broadcast, had said, you want to score with your man when you're in the red zone, which means you block your guy until that running back scores. Go back and watch the Miles Sanders touchdown. All 5 offensive linemen are in the end zone when he scores. They just push everybody back into the end zone on that touchdown. It just goes to show how dominant they can be. And if you give Jalen Hurts time, if you give him the ball, good things are going to happen, and they're happening here. Such a satisfying win to win in all three phases of the game. Aside from the penalties, they were so clean. They did so many things well. They got after the quarterback. They protected their own quarterback. They got the ball to the playmakers on offense. The AJ Brown thing was just hilarious because you knew what was going to happen. You knew what was going to happen yesterday. You knew he was going to go off. Apologies to anybody who had to play against him in fantasy. Me. And it's just rarely do things go perfect. Rarely are things 100% your way. I'd say it was about 95% our way yesterday. About 95%. Most satisfying win of the year. And there have been many. And a blowout of a team that's going to be in the playoffs in the Indianapolis Colts. So we look ahead. We've got the Giants next week, up in MetLife. I'm not counting this as a win. We lost there last year, and obviously things are a lot different when the game's on the line and you're throwing to A.J. Brown instead of Jalen Reagor this time around. But I think that's a team that, one, we talk all the time about how good Brian Daboll is as a coach. So they're going to be ready. And it's a team who tied yesterday, so you didn't improve your playoff position because you tied with Washington. And you didn't, you just really did nothing. So you're still in this desperate state of needing a win to make the playoffs. So you go, if you're the Giants, you go Eagles and then Commanders again in Sunday Night Football, because I think we see that this is lining up towards whoever wins there is going to get the playoff spot, which just kind of makes it so freaking funny that they tied. Like them tying at 20 was just so perfect for those two teams. So I don't think this will be another like 35-10 shellacking like we saw yesterday. I think you're going to get a good fight from the Giants. We like Daboll a lot as a coach, but I think it's kind of the same, man. Like you have more talent, you have more weapons. Just don't beat yourself. Corral Saquon Barkley, and you're going to be in a similar position, setting yourself up for a win. The Cowboys won again. The Colts are just it's hard to watch them play football. It's really hard to watch them play. And that defense, that Cowboys defense just kind of pounced on them. There was just no way that the Colts were going to hold up for 4 quarters against them, and they didn't. So we can see the collision course coming. It's interesting. It's really interesting because the Cowboys are now going to go, I believe they have the Texans and the Jaguars before they host the Eagles on Christmas Eve. And you can just see this. You can see it coming. It's like the Union and Confederates going through Gettysburg. They're going to meet up. It's happening. Christmas Eve is probably going to settle the division. It is probably going to settle the 1 seed. The Vikings should have lost yesterday. And that would have kind of solidified that one of the two of us would get the 1 seed as well, seeing as we hold a tiebreaker against them. But shout out to the Jets, 2nd and goal from the 1 yard line and you're in shotgun twice and don't sneak it at all. That's really solid football. Good for you guys on that loss. Like I said, the collision course is there. We see it. It's great for the podcast, not great for our mental health, but got to win the games to get there. Can't have any slip ups. That goes for both the Cowboys and the Eagles. So we'll see it next week. But I think if you're an Eagles fan, enjoy that Titans win. That was incredibly satisfying, and we'll go from here. So like I said at the top, please subscribe. We have 2 great teams. This could be an NFC Championship podcast between the Cowboys and the Eagles. It could be a Super Bowl podcast for one of us. So subscribe now. We're closing in on 300. We'll be back this week. We should have a guest lined up talking NFC East football, which will be awesome because all 4 of us can make the playoffs. And we'll be back with the show this week. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, and we'll talk to you then.